All right. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Just a Tip.
Come on, bring it in.
Come on.
Wow.
Get in there.
Makes me uncomfortable.
That's
Three-way.
fantastic. Three-way tip.
Get used to
I'm
it.
super uncomfortable.
Not used to
I'm
it.
Dane. No, I'm not. I'm James. That's Dane.
I am Dane.
And this
And I'm Brandon.
is Brandon. Now, Brandon's a pretty cool guy.
A unique specimen.
Unique soul. He's, super successful business he's running. He's a super good athlete. He's huge. He's built like the Hulk. Wow. I feel uncomfortably small around Brandon, which pisses me off.
That's why I cover up in purple tracksuit.
It is what it is. He's got a beautiful family. He's just kind of the man. Like if you're picking a dude to have a man crush on, Brandon's
the guy.
You guys really should get to know me better. Get to know. Maybe talk to Sally.
But in
about it.
Aria, where did you play college ball?
BYU.
BYU?
Yeah.
Cougars. They can eat shit, but that's all right. He
gotta
balled
tread
out,
lightly.
and then he played for the Rams as well.
St. Louis Rams.
Yep, St. Louis Rams.
Brief. I got fired from my first job out of college, but
Yeah, but you were
was there.
But you were there.
I was there.
If it's on a resume, you're like, I was
And I
one
backed
of the
up.
Rams.
I backed up our Hall of Famer, Orlando Pace. So I was this close to the Hall of Fame.
Dude, that's the real deal.
That's how it works. we about got there. Oh, that's fantastic. So really, Brandon, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
Big shot.
It's good to be here with you guys.
Oh, and he coaches high school football.
Yeah, I actually love
with
that.
your spare time.
Out at Green Canyon.
Yeah, but this was my first year coaching high school football. I've been involved in youth sports for many years, obviously, but this is my first high school stint, and I loved every minute of it.
And what position in coaching?
Offensive line and tight ends.
Awesome.
That takes up an uncomfortable amount of time, doesn't it?
So much time,
And
way much more time
zero.
than I ever thought.
Not worthwhile on the pay. So
No,
you're
it's not something you do
you're
for
doing
pay.
it for the
You
children.
don't count your hourly on that.
No.
Because then you're like, this is rude.
No.
This is offensive.
Even the coaches themselves, the high school, like the head coaches,
Yeah.
the amount of money they get it's ridiculous. I mean,
Right.
it's a labor of love for sure. Yeah.
We got to freaking love it. We obviously love it.
Yeah, I do love it, and I love spending time with the kids. And I've got a son that's in high school right now, so it makes it a little easy to go volunteer down there. But I love it. I love being involved with the youth.
Heck yeah. Well, and as far as, so like what you've learned from, youth sports up into the professional level, like, is there, like, what information are you giving to the high school kids that
You wish
you would have
known.
had? Because I know there's a ton that I wish I would have had. Like,
Yeah.
creatine's not a macro.
That's what we said. The creatine's the fourth macro.
Creatine's the fourth macro. More creatine doesn't do anything.
Oh,
I wish I would've done that.
nutrition in particular has come a long ways for sure. Even when I was involved at the professional level, you'd think that there would have been some pretty significant science that they could help you with, and there really wasn't. It's the stuff that even I've been working with you guys on. I wish I'd known back then. It would have made a huge difference for me. And I think now more than ever, kids seem to be really open to wanting to do the right things as far as nutrition goes. But to your question, James, on what could I go tell young Brandon that I try and tell these kids? I think for some reason, and I think obviously it's because we're seeing these guys on TV every Sunday. There's this pressure and this feeling that, hey, I've got to make it all the way. I'm a high school star. I'm going to go all the way to the NFL. And I've even had, I'm coaching 7th grade football, and I'll have parents come and say, hey, or I'm even 6th grade flag football. Hey, what do I got to do to get my son to the NFL?
And you're like,
And I'm like, listen, there are so many
like
things.
he's 90 pounds. Like, what are you doing?
and there are so many things that all the way through football that are way out of your control. Injuries, coaching, just so many things that what I would go back and tell Brandon is, you've got to figure out what's in your control, and that's all you got to focus on. Everything else is either going to take care of itself, or you just have to say, hey, I didn't make it, and I did everything I could, and I am where I am.
Right.
That's where you have to be.
Do you think there's a lot of people putting all their eggs in one basket? Like, Timmy's going all the way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's crazy how much pressure parents end up.
And did you have pressure from like your parents? Like this is what you were going to do.
My parents.
Because I see that pretty regularly.
Yeah, my parents are not at all. In fact, we didn't even have cable growing up, and so I rarely watched sports. I mean, I played sports. I played basketball and football, and but my first time playing tackle football was my freshman year of high school. My parents were very hands off. They're just kind of like, hey, we're going to get you involved. There's no pressure. They were great like that. I see parents these days that, look, it's great to support your kids, but it's at some point when you're putting that much pressure on them, hey, you have to play college football or basketball, you have to go to the next level, and you're talking about things that are out of their control in a lot of aspects. So what are you telling your kid? Hey, if you don't make it, are you a failure?
Right.
You know, if you do not make this next level that I, as your dad, I'm always talking about, have you failed?
Right.
And that's where we end up setting up these kids. And it's like, you know, we don't sit there and say, hey, Dane, you are going to be an attorney from the time you're a 9-year-old.
Right.
You're going to be an attorney, or you're going to be a doctor, and we're going to start doing
Yeah. This doesn't speak attorney.
You'd be way good.
Right.
I would hire you for sure.
It's like Better Call Saul. It's like a gotta get the track sheet in. For sure. Better Call Dane.
Palm Dawn.
But for some reason we say, hey, when it comes to like a profession, let's expose them to a bunch of different, you know, things so that they can choose what they want to do. But when it comes to sports, parents think, hey, no, we're going to get you to the NFL or college, and it's largely out of their control. It's a really hard expectation put on these kids.
Right, and that's a ball buster for a kid if you're as good as your stats.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I didn't make it.
Yeah, and one of the things I tell high school kids all the time, because I played in some of the greatest venues on earth. I mean, if you're a gladiator and you're playing in the Coliseum, I played, you know, at Notre Dame, at USC, I played at SEC schools, just in these awesome venues. And the greatest football that I ever played or enjoyed was right here under the lights in Cache Valley. Because after high school, it really becomes a business. I mean, it's more of a machine.
It's a different sport.
It's a different sport. And look, there's still great things. I have great relationships and friends. And obviously, when I was playing, if I'd have got paid $30 million, maybe that makes you love it a little bit more. Right. But
you can deal with a lot for 30 mil.
But sometimes the kids get so forward thinking about, hey, I'm going to try and get to college, that they forget to live in the moment and enjoy now.
Right.
And I try and tell them, look, I've been there, and I have never enjoyed football as much as I did when you're just playing for chicks in your school.
Right.
You know, you're not playing. There's nothing else you're playing for. It's the purest form of athletics. And you know, when you're in college, you're expected to be at every single practice, these meetings. You got to put in all this stuff. You're trying to balance that with actually college. And then when you get to the NFL, it is. They're literally filming every second of every day, and if they see something they don't like, you're cut.
Right.
Which they cut me, because they saw something they didn't like, and you're out.
Right.
And so you look back, and so fun just to play Friday Night Lights.
Well, and going off so in the world of sports, your glory time as in the pros wasn't that long, but you were there, which is you're an anomaly at that
crazy
point. And in your day-to-day life, how often does that even come up? Like in business, is it you're not talking about it?
No, it doesn't.
Right?
A lot of times, people, just because I'm taller and maybe a little bit bigger than the average human, people say, "Hey, did you play football?" And I usually just say, "Yeah." I'm not really wanting to get into, "Hey, this is what I did." And I've it's been 20 plus years ago, and I have other things in my life that I'd rather talk about from an accomplishment standpoint.
The mindset aspect, like how much of that grit that you had to go through from the college to the pro level, how much is that transferred into your business
Everything.
life?
And it's hard to look back, because this question does come up a lot in business. I've always been driven to succeed and to accomplish things, and So when was that instilled in you? And it's probably somewhere along that process you picked up that grit. And I've always been really competitive. I've liked camaraderie, and I like working in teams. And I'm not much of a lone wolf. I like to kind of surround myself with guys that I feel like I can succeed with. Right. And I think that goes back to the team thing of sports. But the grit part of it, and one thing about when you do get to the NFL level, like I said, there's this pressure on you that if you screw up at all, I mean, especially a guy like me, I was a free agent, I didn't get drafted,
right,
and so you really have to really beat out guys that they don't want you to beat out, and so there's this pressure on you, like if you screw up at all, you're gone, and that affected the way I played.
Oh, for sure.
It was hard for me to just kind of unleash,
Yeah,
like,
makes sense. Now, from a perspective of the kids that actually have a shot at the collegiate level or the pro level, I mean, some of the main things, like we've talked about, nutrition, it has got to be the core development of everything you build everything else off of. I mean, one thing that we always recommend is keep your protein intake high. I think most of the high school students completely miss the mark on that. Completely. When I was playing, you had some random person come in and talk to you about nutrition, and they talk about protein and carbs and fats, and you don't even have any clue what those contain. Like not a damn clue.
So where do I get those? Bologna sandwich? Check. Gotcha.
Grab my sycamores and
I'll eat more of those.
and so how much that affects their play is huge.
Huge. And it's evolved a lot. It really has. I mean, I think when I actually, between college and the pros, transitioned from being a tight end to an offensive lineman. They wanted me to gain 60, 70 pounds. And so how did they tell me to do that? They said, just like eat ice cream right before you go to bed.
Eat.
Just garbage
just
stuff.
The dirtiest bulk ever.
Oh, it's the dirtiest bulk ever. And you feel terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I really feel like the kids are understanding the need for protein and the need to kind of do it right. And I feel like there's the resources are there for them to be able to do that.
Right.
I mean, there's so many protein drinks you can buy just in a gas station.
Right.
None of that stuff was around when it was basically just drink stuff with creatine in it and you're good to go.
I also feel like parents, since their lack of knowledge nutritionally, like I almost get the vibe from parents that come in, they're like, hey, wait, my kid should be taking a multivitamin? Isn't that, well, aren't they too young for that? And you're like, what? Your kids are developing and they're getting the trash kicked out of them at practice, and you're worried about too many micronutrients and too much protein. Like, what the hell? So do you feel like you're battling with parents at all when you're preaching like, hey guys, like you really need to increase this, and the parents are like, well, I don't know how I feel about that.
I think that obviously we've got the internet, right? Everybody can get on the internet and become an expert pretty quickly. And so I think, and this is what I tell a lot of the parents of my players, is the nutrition guidelines kind of that we follow, that Dane would tell you to follow, are actually not just specific to some football player.
Right.
They're really good for you as a person.
Health.
Right. It's a health thing. And so what I would recommend is for the parents to get on a similar program, right? So it's really simple, and so the parents can get on this stuff, because what ends up happening is you have the kids are in this environment, and we see this right now with our kids, that you have this environment where there could be a lot of junk food, and so the parents are still eating the junk food and they're not doing things right. And so then you expect this kid to be living in that environment with all that stuff still accessible.
Right.
And that he's just kind of, or he or she's just going to kind of do it on their own and succeed. And that's not going to
Well, and they're chirping, they're like, that's 6 whole eggs? Are you sure that's okay?
Right.
Your cholesterol levels, like that alone. I'm just worried about him. All he does is eat meat. And you're like, holy dump woman. What is happening?
Exactly.
That's exactly. And he's trying his best, But so you got someone telling one thing, and his parents are just like, I just don't think that's healthy. And you're like, well, what is? What is?
Like,
what's your suggestion? More pie?
One thing that we do recommend from a health standpoint, and we've talked about it, kind of that D1 package.
Oh yeah,
right.
It's coming.
Yeah,
The D1
we got
package is
something
coming.
big coming, and our sponsor, Sweat Ethic, of this episode, they are one that include most of their products in our D1
Oh yeah, they're gonna
package.
be a big part of the D1.
Yeah, we got a good quality multivitamin, some fish oils, some probiotics, and Sweat Ethic did just drop a new protein flavor, cinnamon roll, and it is a treat.
and
Hold on.
Okay.
And on another note, this purple tracksuit, this one is not from Sweat Ethic, but I want you to know that I have a tracksuit from Sweat Ethic.
that not only did Sweat Ethic, put their stamp of approval on this, but it is a tiger tracksuit with tigers
dope.
all over it.
It's dope.
So
Thank
that's
you.
on another
tiger
level.
Thank you, Sweat Ethic.
That's probably the best thing
Apparel
that's
line
happened in
coming soon
2021.
in the D1 package.
Baby Tiger King. Me?
Bro,
Oh no! Look,
your
I've got to
coaching
maintain some
would be-
credibility.
it would be improved.
Like it's just enough for me to
significantly.
keep up with the vocabulary. Got to learn all the new vocabulary.
all the new lingo.
All the new
Guaranteed
lingo.
to increase your team success with a tracksuit.
It's fantastic. Now, with that being said, in the high school football world, right, the schedule, you've got morning weights, and then later in the season, you have 2 days. Morning weights, you have practice in the morning and then a night practice, right? And most of these kids are running off of fumes.
Right.
Strictly fumes. They have no direction as far as nutrition goes. So one thing that we recommend big time is protein every 3 hours. You wake up, eat, for the typical high school athlete, for a male, 40 grams of protein when you wake up, and then every 2.5 hours after that, 40 grams of protein. And then as many carbs as you can physically handle
Yeah.
for a growing.
Because the funny
school
thing
athlete.
is like, how many high school and college stars have you seen that they were just balling? Then they hit 35 and they look like dog crap, complete trash, right?
Right.
Because they never got their eating structure developed ever. And so they were super, super active. Their hormones are optimal. Their growth hormones through the roof, testosterone's through the roof. So, they're hormonally set up to be super resilient, one, because you're surviving on fumes. And then once you hit your 30s and your hormones no longer supporting you and you're sitting on your can all day at your desk job, you sit there and you're like, holy crap, I am disgusting. And I have no control over my diet.
Yeah.
So realistically, if you instill those eating habits, everyone should be doing it, but especially athletes, like Dane said, eating every 3 hours, get your protein in. You will never hit that wall in life where you're like, what the hell happened to me? Like, I look like Jabba the Hutt. This isn't like, I used to have a 6-pack and now it's just a wad of fur and gross.
Well, and I talked about this with Dane. I think it's crazy to me that when we get injured, we go to a doctor, and then for some reason, when it comes to things like nutrition, we don't feel like there's people to reach out to and go get expert advice on. We kind of just want to come up with stuff on our own. And so, there's resources in every community. You guys are a great one. We push kids down to try and get them to come down and talk. There's people in your communities that know what's going on.
Right.
And for some reason, parents think a lot of times that they can kind of just figure it out for them. It would encourage parents to reach out to those resources and figure it out. I mean, if you really are, even if you're that parent that is crazy and says, hey, my son's going all the way.
Right.
That should push you even more to go and find the right setup for your kid instead of trying to kind of wing it on your own, what you read on the internet.
Well, and that sounds like part of the ultimate tip, because we're about time for the ultimate tip. So would that be your ultimate tip?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's a good tip.
Yeah.
Mine would be do the basics. Everyone should be doing it. Fish oil. Get your protein every 3 hours. That covers so many of your problems. Like, it fixes so many issues. It simplifies everything. It gives you structure. You're getting all the basic nutrients you need for recovery. So that is my ultimate tip.
I like that. I like
What
both.
do you have? What do you
I
have
like
to add?
both of your tips.
What do you
I
have to
just
add to
want
our
you to
tips?
know. I will throw a third tip in there. Now, from my tip standpoint, I definitely agree with both of you. I need you to calm down a little bit. Okay? All right? Okay. I definitely agree with, Brandon's tip of branching out and finding the resources that are going to excel you further. For example, my mom, phenomenal woman. She is no. This is all good things.
Be careful.
Janet's a great
Tread
woman.
lightly, my friend.
She was a dietitian. And growing up, I had this great dietitian. She was always cooking healthy food. And so I kind of knew the basics. But when it comes to sports nutrition, completely different ballgame.
Right.
It, kind of over her head. She understands it, but doesn't know how to implement it to the workload. And
Right.
so you've got to find someone that understands the process on a more in-depth level to be able to excel you to that next level. So
agree.
utilize your resources.
Okay, you guys got all of the tips, so you better do something about this. See you guys next time.
Oh, good. We don't have to touch fingers again.
No, that was only one time.
Just one time touch.